Welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And we're probably just going to continue on with the last video since we were kind of talking about how I work with herbs. And obviously, I have my own experience. What I'm trying to offer with my videos is what it would be like to maybe meet someone who actually practices magic and it's a way of life for them. Because we might read a book, go to a workshop, whether it's like on shamanism or some spiritual thing like tree of life path working, or, you know, and we just assume that the teacher has maybe years of experience, or and they're holding back information when really they just don't know, or maybe they've just picked it up and have only been practicing for like 5 years. um so what would it be like to maybe meet a real witch or a real shaman or a real mystic, a real guru? It seems like in our world there's a whole bunch of talk, and we talk about theories and concepts, and the guru sits in his chair, and the audience always asks really dumb questions. And it seems like gurus seem to talk in circles and never address it straight to the point. Or they also don't tend, they won't deviate from their like philosophical belief. You know, it's like somehow it always, they're stuck in a mold. And like if Esther Hicks starts talking about something totally different that has nothing to do with Abraham and the law of attraction, well, then she's not being Esther Hicks and she's not channeling Abraham. So really, um like I was watching a video, just like a little clip, and I was like, "Oh, she's bound to a role." But that was also her income. That's what she's like, created a name and she's branded herself. So the last thing she really wants to do for herself is step off the stage and turn off the channel. And so then I question, and it's not really her specifically, because you could say Doreen Virtue, who talked to angels, when she turned the switch off, she did a 180 and said all the angels that she was channeling was evil and it was all wrong. But she said it after she made her fortune. So Sadhguru, the same thing. Uh, and so it's like, how many? It's like, why are we critical? Why are we judgmental? Why do we not trust the teachers? And it seems like because people are making money. And so it's a name brand, it's a business, it's an identity, and it crushes their name if they all of a sudden go a whole different direction. And so, was it a good thing? Were they living their life purpose? Who knows? But it's almost like they got bound to a role. They can only really talk and share about being a guru or being the channel and whatever it is that they're bringing forth. um, no one really wants to know how they tie their shoes. Everyone ties their shoes. So it's like someone. So I wanted to bring the magic and the mysticism from someone who's been practicing their whole life. Not like once a week when I don't have my friends and I'm bored. Let's just pull out the Ouija board, you know, Google, you know, and whatever. It's like, no, who has been studying? Who has been experimenting? You know, who developed something, a craft, and got some results, and has enjoyed the journey and really is going down that road on that path Well, maybe they have a little bit of wisdom. So it's like, I don't want to go to a card reader who hasn't done it professionally or who hasn't had at least 200 readings under their belt. Then they're getting a little bit seasoned. I don't want to learn magic. I don't want to learn shamanism who from a shaman who isn't into soul retrieval or who can't summon something, do something magical. It's like, I don't want it to be from someone who has just read books. Like, and can you learn it from just reading books? Yes, but then you also have to have the experience, the practice. So it's not like religion where you can just turn it on one day a week and just agree about, just go through the motions and then feel good and then go back to your other life. Like, so I would, a true mystic, a true shaman, a true channel, a true psychic. No, you're built differently, or you have been rewired. You've been realigned. So you can't have a normal life. You're set apart. You're a chosen one. And it's a different lifestyle. Like, it's a life path. And that's where part of the power comes from. So I would say the root of all of this for me is shamanism. And everyone can tap into their inner shaman. Now you can specialize it into psychic. You can specialize it into witch. You could specialize it into wizard. And then you can go above and beyond to sorcerer status. So we create a model of how the universe works through our experience and through what we share as a culture, in our generation. But so in my working model, I put sorcerer at the top, then demigod and God, a God being, and no God source. So in my universe, there is no, being called God, you know, an all knowing being. And in a weird way, I will challenge even the notion of a presence or the quantum field, this all knowing fifth dimensional field that is basically another name for God. I'm not going to subscribe to that. So, besides being and this is where I think we get separated from the mystic and the new ager and the religious branding. When you go more into wizardry, you go more into the occult, there is room there to say no. I challenge that. I challenge that philosophy. I challenge that formula. I challenge it, and I will go another way and explore it. So, anyways, moving on. So it'd be like, what would it be like to go to a real magical person's house? What would you see there? And what would their day look like? Would it be like brewing potions over a cauldron? Maybe. That might be that person's tool, that particular witch's tool. Maybe. So yeah, the tools could be different, but you can there's common denominators. How do they handle their tools? Did they make them themselves? What imbues them with power? Where does the power come from? So you can look at it analytically, scientifically, logically, reasonably. These things don't get thrown out the window where those things get thrown out in like religious, faith-based things. You don't take someone's word for it. And, you know, there you so like really witchcraft is within the family, their bloodlines. And so you're not teaching outsiders, or you're not inviting outsiders in. So I imagine your grandmother would be the one holding the power, who taught her daughter, who now has taught her granddaughter. And it's a lifestyle. So you may have learned over the years, not realizing you learned a craft. And I would say the spells and the manifestation and the getting your needs met was the last thing. It was maybe more how you raised your pets and animals and how you walked through the forest and you knew you had a relationship. And so, according to my model of how I organize everything, what really sets a witch apart is her relationship with nature. Like, that's her go to. It's like instinctual. I need to clear my house. So naturally, I go to this part of the forest, I grab these plants, and I bring them in. It energetically shifts things. And so, you know, or I'm not feeling well. Oh, I feel a sensation. I need to walk across this hill I'm feeling drawn to. It's not like, so it's not this Victorian romance. An angel is talking to me, and now I go to this side of the forest, and there's an elemental being in a white gown, and she's pointing to this flower, and I'm grabbing it. It doesn't need to be so fantastical. It's, oh yeah, well, I trust my gut and my body, and so I keep digging, and this root, when I hold it in my hand, my stomach starts to settle. So I pull it, I bring it in, make a little tea out of it to soften the root. I drink the tea, I start to feel better, but then I have a natural sensation to chew it. I'm chewing it. Oh, now, well, no, I don't think I'll swallow it. My body is kind of saying no, don't eat it. So you have a really strong connection with your body language, you know? And so it's not like you look up in a chart and there's a correspondence. Everything red relates to the blood and the heart and love, and now I do a spell. So we miss, so when you go too logical with it, you miss the art. You cut out so man is divorced from nature. And to be divorced from nature, you're divorced from your body. To be divorced from your body, you're divorced to your instincts. Those instincts are related to your limbic primal brain. And your limbic primal brain is connected to your senses, which navigates you into this experience. So when you crank that up, you start having magical experiences. How do you reactivate that? You know, by spending time in nature, by using your five senses. Stop to smell the roses, have a pet, learn to communicate non-verbally, you know? Uh, it's really honoring your body, your senses, your biological clock, honoring living with the seasons. It's so natural, it's human. You've just you've just mastered it, on an instinctual level, not on an intellectual level. So I went on a hike, you know, I was invited with a friend years ago to go to Washington State. I was excited to go there because I would have dreams about fairies and magical creatures when I was young, uh, over in Washington and up in Alaska. So I originally had dreams first, then later manifested as invitations to go visit these places. While I was there, I was naturally attracted to this stick, this piece of cedar in the cedar forest where some hot springs were. And I knew it was going to be my magic wand. And through my imagination, it would grow into a wizard staff. It was like a compact carry along wizard staff that could just be shrunken down. I could wear it on a belt. So there's that creative element. Um, And so that's how I acquired this wizard staff. It's a magical healing staff, you know. Uh, and so I picked it up out of nature. I just didn't buy it. It's not made out of plastic. I didn't get it because I watched Harry Potter, you know. I, I felt drawn to it. It was like glowing. I felt magnetically drawn. My body was like, look over here. And then I was looking. I don't have really great eyesight. And so it seemed to be glowing in a orange. There used to be like an orange glow about it. And I knew it was my stick. I'm like, okay, I can see energy fields, like not super strong, but I see like faint glows of colors and things. So I was like, dude, you're calling to me. I'm having an energy connection. So I don't fully understand it, but I'll pick you up. And if I can't let go, well then you're my stick. And so there's that inner child. The inner child. You ask a child, why did you pick up that stick? I don't know. Why are you asking me why? This question, this getting the brain in the way, cuts you off from your creativity, cuts you off even from higher consciousness. So, dreams are very important. Dreams are portals to other realms and dimensions. The mastery of dreams, in a weird way, is mastery of magic. So, there was a phase in my life where it was very shaman based. I've always had a natural love for animals, and maybe it's because I have that Pisces moon. That would, that might be the justification. But I've always loved animals. So I started dreaming about a particular hawk or eagle, and I dreamed, uh, like it was in danger, and I needed to rescue it, and I was in a panic. So I woke up, got in my truck, drove up to far out desert mountain area, and went over up this road, up this cliff, and looked over the cliff. And there was the bird nest with the dead hawk, you know? And so dreaming true dreaming is, you could say, a guidance of some type. um I think, and same along that lines, uh I don't know what happened. Maybe that hawk, I can't remember if it was dead or eventually left. We went there and then it wasn't there anymore. uh but then I went looking for a feather, and in that area I found this feather. And the first time I went looking for it, it wasn't there. And I took my apprentice with me. He was like 13 at that time. I think I was like 20, 24 maybe at the most. And I remember I was up with him. He was like, we were both really into shamanism. Uh, I started apprenticing him when he was like 8 years old. Like, I was friends with his mom. I would go over and babysit, and I'd teach them how to shamanic journey. I'd bring a drum over, and we would like play games. And then his sister liked it, and his little brother liked it. So we'd get on this huge bed, and we would light a candle, and I'd beat the drum, and then they would go on. We do creative visualization to start the journey, and then I'd let them go and have their experience. And then they would come back and tell me about their experience. And so, in a weird way, I trained them to be shamans, knowing that, I wouldn't stay forever. I knew I was just there for a very specific time to help them play with their brain, their creative imagination. Um, so in that window is when I got this hawk feather. Um, and so I remember I was up on the mountain, up on this like desert mountain cliff with my apprentice, and when you're kids, you're naturally open. So they were way open at that time, more open than me. And so I definitely used my apprentice's help. I was like, where's this feather that I dream about? And he was like, my power animal is telling me it's here. You just need to look better. Something, and then we found it. Me and him, we found it together. I found the original one, but it was just the stem. And because it was winter, like all the feathery part, like rotted or melted away. It was just the long stem. So I had to go back at a different time and collect one with all of it on it. So, how many years was I dreaming about feathers? A lot of years. Um, I used to dream all the. It was like a signal in my dreams from going to regular dreams to shaman dreams. Like, I dream I was in my backyard, then all of a sudden there'd be this like larger than life owl feather. And I'm going, whoa, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, wait, I'm in a dream, a spiritual dream. So feathers were always a symbol if they were like owl or eagle or whatever, that I was in a special type of dream. And, and so that's how I acquired this. So I'm not using it really in any magical way. I'm not like cleaning out someone's aura with it. I'm not doing sage. It's just uh it is a tool, but it's more of like a prayer tool. It's like the other day I was just trying to maybe come back to reality. And so I pulled it down. I keep it up high on a shelf, wrapped up in a special cloth. Uh, and I remember just holding it and I was just saying, okay, higher powers, just help me realign and get back to good. And that was it. That was the end of it. It wasn't like, oh, but here is another one of my favorite tools. So I was on a little walk. I'm always in nature. Like, and it was a time of season where I think it was like late fall. And I noticed the sagebrush had a whole bunch of like sticks like growing out. And then the leafy parts are more near the base. And so this was like the old season's branches from the sagebrush. And I gathered them up and I was like, now this is the tool. This is what I want to stick in people's aura and give it a spin. This is what I want to like brush out garbage. So instead of like a feather fan, I have a sage stick fan. I'll just stick it in there and claw out, dig out junk in someone's aura. And I got some really good results. And then, I stick it in a cute little jar and it's a decoration. So, and I'll like to, I'll definitely like brush the sky. I'll brush the room. I'll brush garbage out the window. And so this is used as a brush. Um, and, I gathered it on my walk. It's just very simple. Uh, this is a little bit less natural. It's dyed purple peacock feathers that I got at a craft store. Um, but it works really good for dusting the third eye. More delicate dusting and brushing. But it was also just for fun, so there's that element of fun. But you see a lot of Hindu gods with like peacock feathers, and I'm very connected to Hindu gods. So it's a way of paying my respect. It's a way of honoring that within me, that multicultural bloodline, and personal connection, but then it's also a tool. So it usually, you know, I'm not like using these tools every day. You know, I have a friend who is like 24 hours using tools. And for me, that's exhausting. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm not in that phase of development. And that's also not my focus. So I would say smudging every day isn't necessary. Doing rituals of protection every day, like major rituals, isn't necessary when you have kind of like a lifestyle and you really work on being clear with being who you are as a human being. Really kind of like clarify your values. That automatically starts putting up boundaries. Like one of my values is I'm not really going to engage in pointless talk. I don't have time for it. So that really saves me from getting entangled in possibly manipulative, abusive conversations that could then lead to psychic and magical wars. You know, I'm just like, okay, I disagree. So I'm not playing with you anymore. We're not friends on the playground. Goodbye. So that's pretty much it. As soon as things start going negative, I just like, shut the door. And so it's like a preventative measure. So I think being conscious and aware, that's the preventative medicine. And then, so another one of my values now is more towards the healing arts. I'm getting older, I'm noticing people around me aging, and what we need is a little bit more kindness. What we need is a little bit more healing. It's like, okay, so I'm good at using energy. I might as well use it to heal people. It might as well be a win-win. So there's a point, I think, in your personal journey where you're like, okay, what I do impacts the planet. It impacts other people, my thoughts, my feelings. And so maybe it's time to clean up my thoughts, my feelings. If and when you become more powerful, your words carry more power. So yeah, we can create with our words, but a lot of people don't have a lot of power behind it because they haven't developed their personal power, their willpower. And I'm like, I've never heard a demon swear. I've never heard a demon use gutter language. They use more royal, classy language, very respectful. So I'm like, the only creatures I've heard use foul, nasty, horrible language is humans who are, they don't respect themselves. So I'm like, maybe I could learn and clean up my language. They don't have swear words, they don't have gutter language and angelic script. So that's kind of a no brainer. So, on the path of self mastery, on the path of professionalism, on the path of self respect and self love, I don't need to be using that language nor hang out with people who need to be using a lot of that type of language. Because that, you know, I've noticed in the art of war, you have to sink to their level to play there. But they're the bullies on the playground. They live in that level. And so they usually kind of bully you. So if that's not your familiar territory and you don't live there, you probably don't need to stay there and move out of there. So preventative is so much better than being in trouble and then trying to get yourself out of it. So know who you are, individuate. If you're truly a healer, you have no business working on curses and hexes and psychic protection. Like, you're a healer. So master that energy, heal what comes your way, and that will then become your psychic shield. Send love when you're able to detach and get clear and rebalanced, then send some love. But if it's not authentic to you, don't do it. You can't lie in energy work, like in the actual use of energy manipulation. So if you're still feeling negative and you need to send negative energy, go ahead, send negative energy. Be honest, have that integrity, you know, like stand behind how you feel and you think. And so that's a process. That's the individuation process. Um, I just, so that's my thoughts on tools. Looks like we're running out of time. But like, if you like to burn, like copal, go gather your own and dry it out. So this is some copal resin that I've found growing, leaking out of trees. And in 2 years, it dried and now it's ready to use. So I think when you find it in nature, you gather it yourself, it has more personal meaning and value, impacts, and you have a better relationship with your tools and they're more effective. And then you use them sparingly. Like less is more. And for me, most of my stuff is for myself and it's for my family and it's for my loved ones. Extending it out farther than that, you're working with a stranger who doesn't have the same values. So, energetically, there can be disharmony. Uh, there could be a lot of self sabotage, a lot of conflict of interest, and backfire in magic. So, backfire with students not understanding you and projecting their garbage onto you. A lot of people have their own secret morality that they, you know, and so all this internal conflict people have messes up the space, messes up. And so it might take a while to build a friendship, a good 3 years before you offer your magical assistance. And we live in a culture that doesn't really value time. It does the opposite. It just burns. It's faster, 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 burns through it and doesn't slow down. Take your time if you're creating a masterpiece, which is you and your craft. Savor it. Take your time and appreciate the details.